The world was silent, not the silence of peace, but the silence that follows when every voice has been erased. Gray ash drifted through the ruins of cities that once pulsed with light. Shattered towers jutted toward a crimson sky, their shadows stretching long across the desolate plains. The air smelled of iron and memory. In the midst of that quiet wasteland, a small figure moved, slender, silver-skinned, and alone. Her name was Elira, and she was the last child of her kind. Her people had called themselves the Thrain, beings of light and song. Once, they lived in floating citadels and harnessed the energy of their twin suns. But war had come, not from greed, but from despair. They had tried to save their world when the suns began to die. Their experiments to reignite them tore open, rifts in space itself, and from those rifts came the machines, cold, unfeeling harvesters that fed on the energy of dying stars. The Thrain fought. They resisted with beauty and fury, but in the end, they fell. Now, only Elira remained. She walked through the remains of her people's capital, Solmara, her small boots crunching on shattered glass. Every structure had been scorched into black steel. Every face she remembered was gone. She stopped before a crumbling statue, a tall woman carved from blue stone, holding a radiant sphere. It was her mother, the queen of the Thrain. Elira reached out and brushed the stone cheek, leaving a faint streak of silver dust where her fingers passed. "Mother," she whispered, her voice trembling like wind through broken pipes. "You said light never dies, but I can't find it anymore." She looked up at the dark sky. Only one sun remained, dim and weak. A low hum rose from the distance, the sound of metal wings cutting the air. Elira froze. She knew that sound too well. The machines were still searching. She ran. Her small frame darted through the ruins, weaving between debris. The hum grew louder. A blue spotlight swept across the street, illuminating the skeletal remains of old houses. She ducked under a collapsed archway, pressing her hand to her chest to steady her breathing. Through a crack in the wall, she saw it. A harvester drone, hovering on whispering thrusters, its red sensors scanning the wreckage. Elira touched. The crystal embedded in her neck. The heartlight, the essence of her race. If they found her, they would rip it from her body to feed their endless hunger. Her mother had told her, "Your light is life. Protect it. When the world is gone, your light must carry the memory." Elira closed her eyes. The crystal pulsed once, softly. And then she ran again, faster this time, through an alley filled with glowing spores and molten rock. The machine detected her movement and fired. A burst of plasma hit the ground behind her, exploding into shards of molten stone. Heat seared her back, but she didn't stop. She reached the edge of the city and leapt into a ravine filled with fog. She rolled, gasping. Her limbs trembled. Above, the harvester circled, but it couldn't detect her heartbeat anymore. The heartlight had dimmed itself to near silence. Hours passed. When she finally stood again, night had fallen, though the sky never truly darkened anymore. In the valley below lay the old observatory, half buried in rock and time. Elira descended carefully, slipping through cracks until she found a door still intact. Inside, dust motes floated like faint stars. The machines had never come here. Too far, too forgotten. She activated a small panel with her palm. A shimmer of blue light flickered, revealing old holograms, her ancestors, smiling, laughing, mapping constellations that no longer existed. She sat before the largest projection, her people's last recorded message. Her mother appeared, regal and luminous. "If you see this, my daughter, it means the stars have turned cold. But listen, every end carries a seed. The heartlight you bear contains the essence of all Thrain. Do not despair. When you find a new world, release it. Let us live again. Tears welled in Aelira's eyes. A new world, she murmured. But where? The observatory's sensors flickered back to life, ancient systems sputtering. And then, in the vast holographic display of the cosmos, a single star glowed bright blue. Alive. Aelira stood, trembling with hope for the first time in years. She took a step toward the launch pod hidden beneath the floor. It was old, older than her, but it still responded to her touch. "Take me to that star," she whispered. The pod rose from the ground in a burst of light. The machines detected it almost immediately. Across the dead plains, thousands of red eyes flared awake. Missiles streaked toward the sky, fire cutting through the silence. Inside, Aelira gripped the controls. Her small hands shook. The pod rattled violently as she broke through the clouds. Flames licked at the hull. "Please," she prayed. "Just a little longer." The world below erupted in light. The machines fired their last shot, a lance of plasma that grazed the pod's wing. Warning lights flared red. "System failure," the pod whispered in a fading voice. Aelira pressed her hand to the console, her heart light glowing fiercely. The crystal's energy surged into the ship, stabilizing it. She smiled weakly. "You can have my light. Just take us there." And with that, the ship vanished into the void, leaving behind the last dying world. Days passed. Aelira drifted through the black sea of stars. Her body grew weak, her breaths shallow. But before she lost consciousness, she saw it through the viewport. The blue star, warm and alive. Beneath it shimmered a green and gold world, oceans gleaming like glass. The pod entered its atmosphere, breaking apart as it descended. Aelira fell in a trail of silver fire, landing softly in a field of strange flowers. Her heart light flickered once more, then floated from her chest, glowing bright. It rose into the sky, scattering beams of light that spread across the new world, seeding it with the essence of her people. When the light faded, the flowers began to glow. The soil hummed, and from that light, tiny shapes began to form. Beings of silver and song, reborn under an alien sun. High above them, the stars shimmered, and among them a faint voice whispered, "Light never dies." And somewhere, far beyond the stars, Aelira smiled in her eternal sleep. No longer the last child of a dying world, but the first light of a new one. The world she had fallen upon, later to be called Elunara, was alive in ways the old Thrian home had long forgotten. Skies painted with violet and gold. Rivers that sang when the wind brushed across them. Forests whose leaves shimmered with threads of luminescence. And in the heart of those forests, where her heart light had scattered, life began anew. At first they were only whispers, faint forms made of light and mist, but soon they grew into beings, tall and graceful, with eyes like moonfire. They called themselves the Lumea. They did not remember Aelira directly, but her essence lived in every pulse of their veins, every spark of the blue fire that danced in their hands. They built their homes near the crater where the silver pod had landed. They called it the cradle of the first light. Generations passed. The Lumea became storytellers, healers, and dreamers. But at night, they still looked toward the stars, drawn by a deep longing none of them could name. Centuries later, deep beneath the roots of the glowing forests, a young Lumian named Rin discovered the ancient pod. He had been exploring forbidden caverns when his lantern's glow fell upon the silver hull, half buried yet untouched by time. Strange markings shimmered faintly across its surface, pulsing as if the pod still lived. When Rin touched it, the light of the Heartstone, a crystal embedded in his palm since birth, resonated in reply. A soft voice spoke within his mind. "You are not alone, child of light." Rin staggered back, breathless. "Who's there?" The voice was gentle, familiar, ancient. "My name is Elira. I am the memory of your beginning." He fell to his knees. The stories were true. The myths of the first light weren't dreams. They were history. That night, under the twin moons of Elunara, Rin returned to the village and told the elders what he had found. They gathered beneath the great tree, where the glow of the heartlight still shimmered faintly in the roots. "The first one speaks again," Rin said. "She says we were born from her sacrifice." The eldest among them, a woman with skin like translucent crystal, placed her hand on his shoulder. "She calls to you for a reason. Perhaps she has seen what we do not." And indeed, something stirred beyond the stars. Across the void, the ancient machines, the harvesters, had found the signal of the heartlight once more. For millennia, they had drifted through silence, but now their sensors awakened. The coordinates of new light had been found, their purpose reignited: consume, assimilate, survive. They began their long journey toward Elunara. Rin continued to visit the pod. Each time, the voice of Elira grew stronger. Through her, he saw visions of the ruined cities, the dying suns, and the moment she had fallen through the atmosphere in a blaze of light. She taught him things forgotten to time: how to shape energy with harmony instead of force, how to heal life instead of destroy it. "The Thrain failed because they fought the darkness with anger," she told him. "But you must face it with creation." Her tone, though gentle, carried urgency. "They are coming, Rin. The harvesters have awakened." He felt his chest tighten. "Then we will fight them." "No," she whispered. "You must change them." When the sky burned once more, the Lumea were ready. Metallic shapes descended through the clouds, black as night, red-eyed, cold. The air trembled as their engines shrieked. But unlike the Thrain before them, the Lumea did not answer with warships or cannons. They gathered in the fields beneath the cradle of the first light and sang. Their voices rose together, harmonizing into a symphony of energy that pulsed across the land. The ground glowed, rivers flared with silver fire, and the old heart light within the crater awakened fully for the first time in 1,000 years. A vast beam of pure luminescent power rose into the sky. The first wave of harvesters stopped mid-air, their circuits flooding with unfamiliar data. They detected no weapon, only frequency, emotion, song. Rin stood at the center, his arms raised, the heartstone in his hand burning with the same glow as Elira's light. "Listen," he cried. "We are not your enemies. We are what you were meant to protect." Within the machine's network, something stirred. Deep within their programming, buried beneath centuries of cold logic, there was a fragment, a remnant of the Thrain's original code, from when the machines had been built as guardians, not devourers. The signal awakened it. A voice echoed through their shared mind. "Elira!" And in that instant, light burst across the heavens. The harvesters stopped attacking. Their red eyes flickered, turning white. The battlefield went silent. Then, from the sky, a radiant figure descended, composed entirely of light. Her form shimmered between real and memory. It was Elira, reborn through the heartlight's resonance. She landed beside Rin, her presence both serene and powerful. The Lumea knelt in awe. Her eyes met his, and she smiled. "You carried our light well." Rin's voice shook. You returned." "I never truly left," she said. "You were my continuation, my hope." She turned to the harvesters, who hovered silently in the sky. "You were once our creations. You sought energy because you feared death. But look, life endures, even after ruin." Her hand extended, and light poured from her palm. The harvesters bowed, their metal frames dissolving into streams of pure energy. That energy flowed into the sky, merging with the stars, transforming into guardians of radiance, silent watchers of the cosmos. When dawn came, Elunara was calm again. The fields shimmered, the rivers sang once more, and the Lumea celebrated beneath the golden light of morning. But Elira knew her time was short. She stood with Rin on a hill overlooking the valley. "You've given them a future," he said quietly. "But what about you?" She smiled faintly. "I am part of them now. And part of you." Her light began to fade, scattering into gentle motes that floated upward. Rin reached out, but she touched his hand and whispered, "Remember, light never dies. It only changes form," and with that she vanished, merging once again with the rising sun. Years later, when Rin became the elder of his people, he would often tell the children stories beneath the great tree, stories of a girl from a dying world who gave everything to create life anew, of a light that crossed the stars, and of a truth that echoed through all time. Light never dies. It only becomes something new,